All right, we are back with our Deadly Dungeon post-mortem, and we are going to take a look at our skeletal lich boss for the spooky estate floor. So, this is the format, just all these liches in these little cubbies, a fire path being blocked, and in retrospect, I should have not allowed vision through the flames. But I did, and it's a colonnade, and it happened, and we scored this encounter.
You know, I could have, with just a little bit of DM assistance, made it so that...
I'm sorry.
So in the turn order, John, you had at least 2 other PCs between you and my action.
Look,
you went first, I went second.
Chad, I got to rip your spine out in a different kind of thing, so I think we're even Stevens.
That was fun. Good times. I love having most of my vertebrae in a different campaign. But anyway, the lich.
So
yeah,
we have quite a few liches. I don't remember how many. And I had a bunch of skeletons off to the side here that we can see. And the skeletal liches, they are carrying shields. They have 17 AC, so pretty high for a skeleton. Nice. But they are little baby liches. They have Eldritch Blast as an attack. Otherwise, they will use Summon Skeleton. The Skeleton Lich summons 1d2 skeletons within 10 feet of itself. Summon creatures roll initiative. I should have not listed that there. I think I ended up just having all the skeletons go at once, or maybe doing them in quadrants. I don't remember. But there can end up being a lot of them. This ability recharges on a 5 or 6 before it can be used again. So basically, they summon, and if they can't summon, they use Eldritch Blast. And that's the encounter. It's not very complicated. It's just there are a lot of them. They do have low AC. Oh, I should have looked at their AC. So they have 6d4 plus 4, which is an average of 19 AC, so not terribly high.
Yeah,
especially if you hit them with bludgeoning damage.
Yeah.
10 bludgeoning damage would kill them, so not a big
Unironically, this is where like a throw build, where you just throw hammers, would be not too terrible.
Right. Yes, exactly.
This would have been a great boss for a team that was not completing 2 floors back to back with several levels of exhaustion.
Yes.
This looks like a lot of fun.
Looks like a fun battle, yeah, for like a 3-hour session.
Yes. Leova in the chat says, we use layer actions on guidance, bless, and heroism. I do not have any experience with layer actions, and I'm not even sure I know what you mean, but...
If you read up a little bit, would you realize that the parties all had a 5th player chat, and then chat's layer actions is guidance, bless, and heroism.
Well, really just the bless RNG on all those more critical 20s that got rolled.
Yep.
Maybe I should have done a Legend of Yaka version of Deadly Dungeon where the chat could donate money to me and I could get paid for running this whole thing. And
never gonna happen.
Benefit or harm the party. Okay, we'll go ahead and move on from Spooky Estate to Delvers of the Forgotten Temple, which is sort of a knock on Indiana Jones. So we'll scroll to the bottom and start with our snake encounter. Doors.
Oh my god.
So first of all, the starting room has a switch because we start to change things up. There are switch doors now moving forward in the dungeon. Doors on this floor do not have hinges. They stay open and are only open with switches. Specifically, you know, this lateral movement. And I'm going to turn this music down. So just moving like north, there were these switches that permanently open those doors. But there were still these rune doors. So moving to the left, there's these, 3 sets of statues of snakes, and as we saw, if you hit the switch at the end of the section, it stops those snakes from spawning. This is... I limited myself to a max of 10 snake swarms. It could be real bad if I just allow that to keep snowballing and you all ignore it and try and fight the snake swarms. As we saw, I think, with the Linguini family, which just, those poor Linguinis. This was their first fight. Yeah. Oh, those poor people. Yeah,
they got danger noodled.
This is the most variable, I think, encounter. And even you all, which had like the one person running ahead to try and stop the switches, I think that was you, Shadow. You ended up getting kind of stuck anyway. But
Well,
using spider
that's 'cause-
climb.
I forgot
Tamara.
to add a spell to a
Hey,
sheet.
Tamara, cast Spider Climb.
I don't have it.
Tamara?
What?
That was a really funny oh shit
Yeah.
moment for us.
Oh yeah, this was a Star Wars meme
This was
run.
the Star Wars
Holy
one.
It
hell.
was.
Why is this a Star Wars meme run? Oh,
Because Tamara was literally voice boxing.
yes,
on
yes.
there.
Sorry, yes.
That was so much fun.
Sorry, I thought you meant the encounter was, and I was like, no, this is Indiana Jones. Like, this is his worst nightmare.
Well, this was your dungeon is in itself a meme. All of it, every
It sure
single
is.
floor.
Yeah. So I rolled d20s, and I in fact have a red d20, a blue d20, and a green d20, and I rolled those. And if I ended up rolling too high, like if I rolled an 18, 19, or 20 on blue, I just re-rolled. So let's move over here, because at one point you all were like, we gotta find, or the Linguini family was like, we gotta find the rat. We gotta find the rat. Well,
Oh my
let's
God,
look
the
at the
room's rats.
lycanthrope room, where there are weir rats spawning in the corners. So, players of at least 40 pounds must spend a full turn on tiles marked in order, starting on this tile. Tiles complete suppressing at the end of the round. After the first tile is impressed, weir rats 1, so once the 1 is pressed in, every round weir rats appear in one of the corners. I would roll a d20 and a weir rat would appear in that corner. So it is a spawn encounter. And then it is on the party to stand on 2, to stand on 3, and 4, and 5, and 6, and so on. So there is at least a minimum, if there are 4 characters acting, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 round, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, a second round. If all 4 party members, well, I guess you could spawn creatures that could help you stand on these platforms. But as soon as you hit the 8th platform, this kind of shadowy, nebulous moonlight that is coming through the ceiling and showing this illusion of a switch becomes real, and then you can flip the switch, which of course opens the door over here on the main hallway. Now, when the 4th switch is activated, a Weirbor appears. And on the... Oh, I'm sorry, that's when 2 is depressed. When 6 is depressed, here, a werewolf appears. And weir rats stop spawning on 7. So, basically, you have to deal with a werewolf, a weirboar... oh, I'm sorry. These are all hidden under this. Front. Where tiger appears on 4, so actually this tiger should have been here, and the report should have been. Basically, you have to deal with all the weird stuff. And I think I have these symbols here to, like, these are on the wall, like cut into the stone. Basically, it's just to show you all, you need to go through this progression of the moon cycle, starting with this one. This way.
I think we would have been thrown off a little if we didn't start at 8 there.
Well, it wouldn't have. Well, you have to start at 1 and go this.
Yeah.
And go counterclockwise. Yeah. Anyway, this is a fun little encounter. We have our Umber Hulk and Unk Egg bursting through the chains on a DC 20 strength check. The Umber Hulk failed on so many. Well, I think I did attacks. I rolled attacks, which are even better, and I think it failed to break through a lot of the chains.
Thanks for putting so many chains on him. We really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, in my play test, I broke through 3 of the chains in 1 turn, and the last chain on another, and started hitting the party. But I think one thing I started doing is I would just target these 2 chains, and then the Umber Hulk was free to move laterally.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I played a little smarter with you all. Okay, let's look at the Stargate room. So I'm going to zoom
Oh my
in here.
god.
Look at that
What?
menagerie
So-
of creatures
so-
waiting.
You walk into this room, you approach this pedestal, which has this, which I would reveal to the party. And it looks like the dial home device from Stargate, where there are all of these symbols. And at the top are these little tiny crystal lights that animate when you press specific, or when you press in these little things. So, starting in the middle, this is a CR1 encounter, a hippogriff, which adds 1 dot. The next ring are CR2 creatures, druid, cult fanatic, priest, berserker, black dragon wormling, mimic, ghast, gibbering mouther. Those are not CR2 encounters. A black dragon wormling is not a CR2 encounter, is it?
Yes,
that can't
it is.
be right. Oh my
Yeah.
god. Okay, the
Black
next
dragons
ring
are
is a
trash.
bunch of CR3 encounters. From Knight, Mummy, Winterwolf, Nightmare, Owlbear, Minotaur, Basilisk, Veteran, Spectator, Gold Dragon Wormling, and Bearded Devil. Oh, and a Werewolf. And keep in mind, as I was assigning these creatures to each of these, gods, these are the symbols of the gods for Arcadia, I tried to loosely associate the creature with a relevant creature. So, Falumbra, the goddess represented by the moon of the soul, werewolf. We have Astaire, the god of order, a knight. The god of time, Tempos, mummies, and so on and so forth. Some of them are more close than others. And then on the final ring, we have our CR4 encounters. Elamia, Ghost, Banshee, Succubus, Lizard Queen, Orc Chief, and Jexel, the god of luck, is represented by this last one. There's a 50-50 chance if you select this one that nothing spawns, and a 50-50% chance it's a Cambion, which is, I think, higher than a CR4. So all of those creatures you can see are here for me to grab, depending on what the party summons.
The caltrips are killing me.
Oh, yeah, so when I was playtesting this, the party asked me for caltrops, and I found Legos, which I thought was the most fucking hilarious thing ever when I was trying to find caltrops in the Roll20 art assets. Anyway, once you complete 11 CR worth of selections, the Stargate activates, and those things walk through the Stargate, and the encounter begins.
Oh shit! So they don't spawn one at a time. You just literally hit the right buttons and they all come in at once.
Once you complete all, because select a hippogriff, 1 light appears. Hit a knight, 3 more lights, and so on and so forth. You basically assemble your own encounter. Choose your own
that's
adventure.
So dope. Hit
This
the middle button 11 times.
I think this was the encounter I was most disappointed didn't get a visit.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. This entire floor generally was just some tough encounters, loosely affiliated with Indiana Jones and some other stuff I was interested in. I was kind of trying different things, with especially spawn heavy fights for this first set, and just some tough creatures for the second. Although I guess you could assemble a bunch of really weak creatures for this Stargate encounter. And then rather than a boss, I kind of split it up into the 4 elements, the 4 elementals, and I just kind of took the elementals and designed an encounter that kind of fit the theme. We had, the fire elemental, just fire damage from being in the room unless you stood on these plates, which gave you advantage, or not advantage, but lowered the DC of a scaled result on fire damage for just a con save on your turn. For the fire elemental, we had earth elemental in just a cavern with you all split up and moving towards the earth elemental. There were piercers.
Look at how many lurkers there are. Oh my
piercers,
god.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's really
There's
funny
so
because as
many.
soon as they go off, they're completely useless. I really loved the air elemental, just this platform in the sky, which I was kind of just very loosely inspired by Super Mario 64 and fighting Bowser on those platforms in the air. And then
That room was terrifying.
added a threat of goblins. Yeah, this room is terrifying. But the thing about this room is, even if you fall off the platform, you don't die. So if your remaining party members can defeat the elemental, you will return.
Oh.
Even if 3 people fall off, if the 4th person can kill the elemental.
You did have some people at some point taking fall damage though when they came back into the room if they were already falling, right?
Did I?
I
don't think so.
I would have not. In my
I'm
mind,
pretty sure
I would
they
have
didn't
not
take
done
any
that.
damage.
Maybe that was just a late night Discord side conversation that we were having, and I was like, oh god, what if we make it, but then we all just die because we're
Take
falling
like
really
20d6
fast?
fall damage.
So that's why this is not
Yeah.
an insta-death mechanic, because you don't necessarily die. So, Gust of Wind, each creature at the start of his turn in the affected area. Well, first of all, at the start of each round, I roll a direction, a cardinal direction, north, east, southwest. At the start of each creature's turn, they must make a strength save or be pushed 15 feet. Moving against the direction of the wind is difficult terrain, and flames are extinguished, or have a chance to be. And then if you're pushed off, I give you a chance to save yourself, and then a check to pull yourself up against the wind. I think I intended for the goblins to have cover. I don't know if I actually implemented that, because I don't think you all targeted goblins at all.
Nope.
And then finally, and the reason a lot of these assets are in weird angles is because I just was filling up a space and like inverting the assets, so there was this nice line of symmetry, like along here, just so they were kind of seamless, and so I had like to turn them diagonally. Actually, assembling this and having these cut corners was a huge pain in the ass of layering. I remember someone asked what was like a huge difficulty. This particular encounter is actually really difficult to assemble because of this stone I chose to use that has the weird pattern. I couldn't flip the asset diagonally and have it maintain the same look. So for example, this art asset, this one is like kind of hidden behind this art asset. Anyway, same with the water. I put it at a weird angle so I could have the water flowing straight down, although we don't really see much behind the clouds anyway. Waterfalls and thick fog. So this was another chance to limit your move or your vision. Puts out flames when you're in the water or not. Flowing water. This was like I summon you all here in this square. And immediately start forcing movement down towards another waterfall, where again you fall infinitely, and if all four of you fall or perish, that's the encounter. But if one of you can manage to defeat the elemental, great, you win, and everyone else returns soaking wet. So difficult swimming this way, forced movement this way, and the only refuge, these rocks, are also slippery, so getting up on them and staying on them is a challenge. So, the water elemental isn't particularly harmful. It's, only a CR5 encounter, but lots of threats elsewhere. That was kind of the notion with a lot of these elementals, is try and defeat it before the room defeats you. So this was
Thank God for water walking.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. That really trivialized this one for you all.
Well, a lot of these floors, like the second group to go on the floor gets all the knowledge, and proper planning made the difference.
Indeed. Okay. Any other thoughts before we move on to the terrifying workshop?
No. Cool floor.
It was a pretty good floor.
I really like this floor. I also really like this floor, which was when I was originally designing this, and it did look a little different than the others. I'll get to the Goblin Scientists, which was kind of the initial theme I had of this floor. Is like, this is the junk floor. This is where all of the research for other floors is done. This is where all the trash from all the other floors gets taken, if we can consider this one whole dungeon. Anyway, I have this. Devils are really tough in my mind, so I really enjoyed having another devil encounter where the devils could sacrifice these not effigies, these just offerings they had to bring in more creatures. So there are underneath them bearded devils that get pulled into existence as they kill their sacrifices to further complicate the encounter and make it even more deadly. This also requires, multiple switches to move through the door, just to kind of prep you all for any future encounters. I think there was just one, the Blight Ooze room, that had multiple switches. But yeah, devils are tough. It was just kind of a fun first encounter to throw at you. I think initially I had planned for these doors to not be ruined, and you could use them to your advantage, but I decided against it at the last second. You could go out either way and just kind of face one devil together. And fortunately, I think you all did go through one door together, whichever party was in.
Yeah.
Moving forward, so the goblin scientists, I wanted them to be like, if there's a creature that is kind of doing research for a lot of the floors, like and assembling like minions of the dungeon, in addition to the guardians, it's the goblin scientists. You know, they're doing research on these, these flesh golems we've seen before. The Stargate room had spectators, in case you managed to pick that one. So spectators are sort of a repeat. And then we have these vine blights, which I had already created the ooze blight monster. So this was kind of like a huge research room. There are bookshelves with notes on summoning demons, flesh golems, and electricity. There are rune spells. Basically, if you all wanted to learn a lot of stuff about the dungeon, this is a room to do it. But you all decided not to look for books. Or look through the books.
To be fair, so... for a small preamble on what we were thinking going into this,
yes.
Devin, who had died with me to the Zorns, had not redeemed himself, so we were operating under a similar thing, and we're just planning to drag two unfortunate souls to the end of this dungeon. And then it became this like really, really great father-son bonding moment between me and Millman.
Yes.
At least we redeemed him by getting a win.
Yeah. So, the scientists had the opportunity to activate just a bunch of monsters to fight on their behalf, as you witnessed. Let me open up select token. Show these to players. Sure, I control them. See their sheet. So, goblin scientists. They have a reinforced lab coat, AC 16, but they have low HP, only 8d6 plus 20, for an average of 21. That can't be right. 8d6 plus 20 is not an average of 21. That is not right somehow. Nimble Escape, which is like a goblin boss move. The goblin can take a disengage or hide action as a... Oh no, that's just a goblin move. Sorry. It's this redirect attack, which is a goblin boss move. When a creature that goblin boss can see, and in this case goblin scientist, targets it with an attack, the goblin chooses another goblin within 5 feet of it, which I think we did see. Because they all started, I started role-playing some of the goblins, like Leah and Luke, maybe? And they were like switching in front of one another, like, I love you more. I'll take the sword attack for you. No, I'll take the sword attack. So they could swap each other with their reactions to keep each other alive. They had Acid Splash, which was just beakers and vials they were throwing at you. Shocking Grasp, they had some tech, like tasers they were hitting you with. And that was in these actions here. So they had multi-attack, they could do any two of these. The Stun Baton, not a taser, but Stun Baton, which is just Shocking Grasp. Or throw bottles of chemicals, Acid Splash. Or they could use the action Activate Machinations, which is what I use to basically activate a Bearded Devil, a Spectator, the Flesh Golems. And they also kind of telegraphed this combination of Vine Blights and Gelatinous Cubes, which is what manifested in the next room that you all saw, where just lots of Vine Blights appeared. You know, as soon as you all hit these 4 switches together, lots of Vine Blights appeared in whatever random compartments I had assigned them to. I have these little markings indicating what the groups are, and just to roll to assign Blights to each section. And then I have a large crystal tube in the ceiling, which cannot be broken. Vine covering the walls and ceilings that violently regrows. It only grows up, not the ceiling. And then the Vine Blights appear, as well as the Blight Ooze, once it reaches the end and starts pouring out. And the notion was like, as this ooze is pouring out of the this tube, the Blight is growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And of course, you all kept slicing it and slicing it and slicing it. And I think I did the halving its size and creating more creatures or copies of it wrong, according to the split reaction. I probably should have done that very differently. I don't know. But this is a very high HP ooze, which takes up its entire space, and if you get stuck in it, you take lots of damage. It has corrosion, which I only remembered at the very end, so y'all's weapons should have been just like suffering a lot. It can engulf and pseudopod, so this is just a really fun custom monster I made. That was just like a super ooze. What if a gelatinous cube was a boss? Was what I imagined. This was also kind of a pain in the ass room to create with so many art assets, but that was really fun. I had this little tiny room, and I didn't want to move all of the art assets of the Blight Ooze room. I ended up just throwing a Guardian in it. I originally had some carrion crawlers taking up this entire space. The room initially was this big, and it was just carrion crawlers, and I was like, that's boring. That's just a room with carrion crawlers. Remember, one of my principles is keep every encounter memorable. And I was given the opportunity to say one of the dungeon guardians moved ahead to another floor. So I swapped it, and I placed this guardian here, and I didn't have to think about what the encounter was anymore. And in one of the initial designs of this dungeon, or this particular floor, I had these purple chests. I just like one of the art assets in Roll20, if you just search chest. Eventually, if you scroll down far enough, it's not very far. There's these purple chests. Here, I'll just drag one on here. I had initially designed these to kind of slow down my test party. They had to start feeding me back magic resources, either magic items from chests or using spell slots. The chest would consume it in order for them to advance. So it was a way of me taking back, from them who had snowballed. So instead, I made the Guardian take that form. And the Guardian basically debated with you all over how to get through this door and wanted something from you all. So I have these notes, which I'll move to the front here. I need to move the token back. I possess the key to this door. If you wish to proceed, present sufficient magical material for exchange. If you present 1 level's worth, either a level 1 chest or a level 1 spell, you insult myself and my maker. Provide sufficient magical material. And if you continue to insult them, they would attack you. Level 2, a respectable haul from your adventure, but I require more. You could bargain with them to take what you offer on a DC 20 charisma check. Or if you, argued in another way and another check presented itself, I would have accepted that. But a high DC. And then level 3, 3 levels worth of material. Are you sure you can't sweeten the deal? They will accept 3. So they would push for more, but just take you on 3. And I think you all offered a level 3 spell slot, which was... Or no, you offered like your current concentrated spell and some other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was like a sacrificial dagger
spell
you picked up.
Yeah, the
Some
random
mundane
dagger.
stuff.
Yeah, I think you grabbed a bunch of stuff from the Goblin Scientist room, which it was just fun role play because you all were asking me about stuff you find, so I just gave it to you, and then I took it right back.
I just wanted to pick up a bunch of garbage. That was like I was role playing as Diogenes, so of course
Gotta argue
one of the things.
Butthead.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at the encounters you all didn't see on the right side. So the first one is just a room, and there's a bunch of smoke here, but there's just a giant lever is all that you see in this room, as well as these tiny little holes all over the floor, the ceiling, the walls. These tiny little holes. It's just very conspicuous. When the lever is touched, a force cage appears, and hissing immediately begins. And then I wrote Cloud Kill. It is not Cloud Kill. Cloud Kill at the end of the round. Otherwise, it is a DC 23 strength check to push or pull the lever. Once pulled, start a 10-round timer until the door opens again. You cannot exit this room for 10 rounds after you manage a DC 23 strength check. course, you can use help. You can combine yourselves. It's a massive lever. It's not meant to be particularly challenging. Like, with how big the lever is behind all these smoke art assets, it invites you all to push it together. So, there is fog indefinitely, a yellow-green fog, which heavily obscures the area. When a creature starts its turn in the fog, it doesn't require breathing. This goes through your skin. You must make a DC 13 con save. Holding your breath does not help. On a success, you take half of 1d8 poison damage. On a failure, take 1d8 poison damage and be poisoned until the start of the next turn. So, you must survive for 10 rounds after throwing the switch, making these checks. That is this trap.
Yuck.
Okay. Would have been a fun and interesting encounter. Moving wind wouldn't have worked because there's so much smoke, and again, doesn't require breathing. Once it gets into your skin, you're a sucker to my machinations. Nice. So, the next set of rooms on the right: 3 gibbering mouthers and 4 statues. These statues are covering their ears and have open mouths. They shoot out shockwaves from the mouths when you move into these lines, which the gibbering mouthers are covered. But on the GM layer, you can see clearly, which deal 2d6 thunder damage on a failed con save and force movement to the end of the line. So let's say you move up to this square, you fail your save, you get shoved all the way over here.
Jeez.
And then there are just 3 gibbering mouthers, which are just yodeling nonstop. We look at gibbering mouthers if you're within 10 feet. There's doe-like terrain, which is difficult terrain, and you must make a strength save. It's a strength save or your speed is reduced to 0. So they kind of prevent you from moving. And then they are babbling incoherently. You must make a small wisdom saving throw or take some damage. Or no, it's not damage. It's do a thing. Roll a d8 to determine what you do. Their bites really hurt, though. And their spit can blind you. So this is just like a slightly tough room. And then, if you manage to get through that room, you go and fight a knight, cleric, mage, and veteran. You just fight another party. The mage already has magic or mage armor cast. But otherwise, it's just a room with a party of, like creatures from the monster manual that are just humanoid. And then on their body, you find a great and basic treasure. That's that encounter. We have, moving up to the north, the Black Dragon Wormling encounter, which has this sulfurous smell and rushing water. You must make con saves at the start of your turn. There is a scale here. On a 15 plus, nothing happens. On a 10 to 14, you take 1d2 acid damage, which really hurt for the party that had really low HP, at least on one of their characters. And on less than a 10, you take 1d4 acid damage, poison for the turn. It's really hard to see them, but there are a couple Black Dragon Wormling tokens dispersed in here that are hiding underwater, have blind sight, and can fight you from under the water and have cover. But there are actually a couple spots here, where you can, in fact, dive under. And I think you all found it right here. There's sight.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you would have had to go all the way over here.
What was the DC for discovering it? Am I blind?
Oh shit, I didn't write one. I think it was... no, it's a scale. So you make a con save, and depending on the result,
to see the tunnel, the passage.
I think I just I relied on passive perception, and if it was high enough, I think for stuff that was difficult, I think I just assumed like a 15.
It sounds about right.
Yeah.
I have a hard time deciding if this room or the room with the fog and the Catch Me is the room that I am so glad that I did not have to experience myself. Oh man, this was Deadly Dungeon at its prime that I'm just sitting watching on Twitch on the other end being like, man, I'm glad it's not me.
I was a sweaty gamer because everyone had used all their resources already and I was down to my last Spirit Guardians. I'm like, well, Good luck to us, I guess.
And making a con save every single round in the acid too.
And I think I gave you. I
times.
think I ended up because I was trying to be a fan of you. I gave you advantage when you were standing on these platforms, or maybe I like stopped it once you got here. I really
don't
like.
think- Yeah.
I was a little kind to you all.
I think they got a boost when they're being carried out of the acid
Oh,
by a
that was
party
right.
member or something.
Yeah. I think this scale assumes that you are in it. So like, of course, if someone was like using floating disc or fly or water walk, that, you know, any of those types of things, I'm sure like you can negotiate like, oh, you've got advantage on those rolls, that sort of stuff, or being carried. All right, so we have the final boss of this, the Warforged Titan, which is hiding in a bunch of junk, as well as a bunch of junk drones. Yeah. I love the idea of there just being a refuse room where there was a boss, and I didn't plan on I didn't plan on there being stories for each of the floors, and as we progressed, I had to invent like what is the story of this floor, not just a theme. So I made it, Goblinstein, and I ended up having to place him here because it's like, oh yeah, he's got to be the pilot of the final boss, Tim, who you're fighting. Yeah. And then, you know, I wanted this narrative of like, ha ha ha, he hops in the mech and disappears. And when I came up with that, I didn't intend for him to be a target or someone who could hop back out of the mech and fight you. But
hey, we were desperate, dude.
Yeah, you were, and it ended up being phenomenal. It was great. I loved it. It was so good. I'm glad you did it. It made the encounter even more memorable, which again, one of my principles. So it was very good.
Yeah.
From a viewer perspective, I love just looking and seeing all the shit that you had from previous floors, just like hiding everywhere, like the llama carpet. You had some. This. It was so much fun.
From the these are the same as what are suspending the vine blights and
got your tube down here.
Yep. Yeah. I
like the idea that
random
they actually bag their garbage, though.
Yeah. How much did you all like? Also, the whole thing with like, oh yeah, I'm gonna just start ripping these trash away. Like, I just have these assets, so like I had to invent a mechanic for quickly, like how quickly do you get through the trash? And it was just like, make a check and we'll determine how many of these you throw away or out of the way. And then, you know, this ended up being my redemption to Neil ignoring the T-Rex encounter. Is you all started running through here and you I have Goblinstein. You targeted Goblinstein. He's going to come after you. So I had him jump out of the mech and come after you.
Yeah.
And I think he got one of you, but he just, like, missed one of you with 1 HP.
Millman's hero character that we had, like, hyped up throughout the game.
Yeah.
It was pretty dope. So I missed an opportunity here for the Diogenes fans in the chat. There's a famous...
Shut up. Get out of here. No, John and I spent so much time talking about Diogenes before the game started, because I took a ancient history studies class in college, so I knew a little bit about him, and then we started nerding out. It was so good.
I just respect memers throughout all history. That's what I really enjoy doing.
He's like the OG memer.
The ultimate cynic.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think, you know, one of those design things, I think initially when I had this room, there were a number of, like, dynamic lighting things blocking your vision through some of these piles. I don't remember if I kept them or not, but sometimes it's like you try and obscure a battlefield, and you might as well just let the people see what's going on and just rather tell them, like, this is a massive pile. You will not be able to fire at, like, junk goblins or at party members on the other side of it. But the Warforged Titan is huge. You will always be able to see the Warforged Titan from anywhere in this room. Like, there's quite a few rooms where I had, like, little tiny dynamic lighting things that ended up just kind of being a pain in the ass. And it didn't even translate to the viewer because they saw the sum vision of the 4 plus of you. So they really didn't even see it anyway.
Good things at the time, but in hindsight.
Yeah. As a GM, you think this will be good, but it doesn't end up being that way.
I think it did well.
This was a fun floor. I had a lot of fun designing and playing this floor.
Yeah.
Moving on, we've got 3 left. The Court of the Raven King. This was the last floor I designed. You'll see there's lots of checkered patterns on this floor. This floor looks entirely different than this map looked the week before you all ran it. Initially, I had a bunch of rooms with just like really simple encounters. Like I had some Uthigs or Otigs or however they're pronounced. Another Minotaur room. I had a Roper in here, a Veteran, and some other stuff. And the weird mechanic of the entire floor was that every round a chess piece would like project itself in the room, and players and monsters would be restricted to the movement, the chess movement of that piece, or otherwise suffer like a saving throw with some effects. And you all weren't moving anyway very much, so it was just like this weird clunky idea I had that had potential but really didn't translate into anything cool and meaningful and even memorable. I scrapped it and redesigned this entire floor the week before you all ran it. And so this was the last thing I designed, so I used a lot of what I learned. I switched and was sick of looking at the monster manual, so I looked at Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes for inspiration. And so when one of the previous weeks, one of the characters was looking for like something on flight or on birds, like when looking in like the starting library of a floor, and I had mentioned a Raven Queen, and I think I fucked it up and I made this a Raven King instead, because I already had like a Lizard Folk Queen and I wanted to switch up the gender. I don't even know what the gender neutral ruler is. It's like gender neutral term for ruler. Probably not, because we've never had one in history necessarily. I'm sure Neil would know. Neil in the chat, if you know the gender neutral term for like royal, please let us know. But I made a Raven King. And again, trying to tie things in and make it really narratively interesting, I had the Raven King come out and meet you all and basically explain what you needed to do. And he assigned you, like the boss assigned you the task of killing some of his court members. And I just found that really fun and interesting. Originally, I have, and you can see this note here in the center, his advisor is in fact Bartholomew the Grand. And Bartholomew the Grand is a fun wizard character from one of my other campaigns. He sounds like this, and he is an epic wizard of great skill and mastery. But the party, this was the Star Wars party, right? Or no, this was the Harrison Ford.
The Harrison Ford party.
And you all, I think, Eugene narrated that wonderful introduction of like meeting George Lucas. And so I just went with that, and I think I changed up the name to like Lucas the Grand or something, was his advisor, just to tie in the fun RP that you all were using. A Sovereign, thank you, Tandy Man. It should have been the Raven Sovereign doesn't have a great ring to it though. Gotta admit. I'm fine with Raven King. We'll leave it. This Raven King is in fact an illusion. So if you tried to fight the boss in this room, the Raven King would just be like, "What the fuck are you doing? Go do your goddamn jobs that Bartholomew hired you to do." You are presented with these 6 rooms. The armory has, and this was a floor I assigned names to each of the monsters just to add a little spice. This is just a Sword Wraith Commander, again, from Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. It's pretty variable, because one of the moves that the Sword Wraith Commander has is Summon Sword Wraith Warriors, and I could roll a 1, I could roll a 5. I think you all ended up rolling 3 or 4?
Yeah, we fought 3.
Yeah.
There was one of each.
Yeah.
2-hander or 1-hander with a shield. No, bowman, I think.
Yeah. I tried to suggest that you all open chests early by giving you this great chest immediately in front of the door, because this crystal, the yellow crystal, will automatically attune a character to a magic item they are holding immediately. So I tried to incentivize you to open the chest early. I know it's kind of weird because action economy is such a big thing in Dungeons and Dragons. So you didn't until later in the fight. Or in fact, I think one of the Spirit Warriors.
Nope, you fucking stole
or
it.
Wraith Warriors took it.
We were a little salty about that one.
Actually mad.
It was a good item too.
It was a potion of speed too. It would have been great for that last fight.
That's right.
No, we were pretty annoyed, but it was a good mechanic. Why not come in and take it?
I tried to telegraph it to you because this is like this can be a really tough encounter, especially if I roll 5 of these Sword Wraith Warriors.
Oh, it was hard with 3.
Yeah. So I tried to give you some tools right here and incentivize you to take them by putting them front and center. But otherwise, I just had a cool armory room with any weapon you could have wanted. And it's funny because I ended up using this yellow crystal in the next floor with the race. I ended up at the last minute throwing another yellow crystal in the floor of the platform again to like make it so you all don't have to spend a minute attuning, because that could be really problematic with this constantly moving platform where you have to be doing stuff. So this mechanic got introduced here, in fact, and really I was like, oh shit, this would work really well for the next floor. I'm glad I thought of this, because otherwise it could make some items really problematic that you have to tune to. So this is kind of a fun new mechanic I added. We had Frim and Frau, as well as this little tiny. There's a little brazier under here, and I had intended for this to be like this room is cold and you take damage unless you're standing really cold or really close to the brazier, but it really didn't work well. So this was kind of a failed encounter in that sense, that the mechanic was sort of a failure in my mind. But Frim and Frau, like coming in and out, I had imagined early on these creatures that came in and out of the darkness, out of the snow, to just kind of guerrilla tactics against you all. And I think that worked okay, although we started doing some grapples that made it really weird and difficult.
Yeah.
So I ended up not using the cold damage, and that was partly because I think the party was really low on resources and I wanted to give them a fighting chance, especially since they had just come from the fungal room, which I'll get to in a moment. So I had anticipated there being a con save if you left this area for some cold damage. But yeah, they were white Abishai. I don't know how to pronounce it, but that was also from Mortem Canaans. Moving to the south, this one you didn't see on the left side. This is a Drider. I had a Drider in this floor when it was the chess floor, but I ended up scrapping that. But I wanted to get a Drider because I think they're a really interesting creature. And I ended up deciding, yes, this is the leveled up spell casting Drider. You can have one that just like physically attacks. I think has like some innate spells, maybe. But this one had some big spells. And this is a firing range. The firing range is what this room is called. And at the end are some target bots that are just holding shields. And they are oaken... What is the original creature called? I call them a target bot, but they're from something else in Mortem Canaans that pairs up with the oaken bolter. And basically the target bot literally just stands there and will use like a protect and impose disadvantage on attacks against the oaken bolter, while the oaken bolter fires back at you all while you are trying to deal with a Drider named Cascara. But there's some good loot.
It's like a reverse batting cage, but with firearms.
Exactly. Exactly. And maybe I could have put one of like a basic chest right here. But there's already some pretty good loot here. I also imposed this huge barrier, so physical, like melee attackers couldn't go and do this and this. Or if you try and fireball the oaken, all the target bot and oaken bolters, you had to pick. So it kind of emulates a firing range, though firing ranges don't have this useless wall in the middle. So this could have been an interesting encounter. Very experimental. And I have
real fast, guys. I've got to hop off.
Okay.
It's late and I'm keeping people up. Apollo,
Nick.
this dungeon was amazing. All of it.
Yeah, I hope you tune in to the rest of the VOD. It was a blast having you. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, I'll be on Twitch chat soon. See you guys.
Later.